Believe it or not, it's love-hate day. Let's jump into those running backs.
Do we have any time left?
Yeah, no, we're going to get to do running backs, then we're going to call it a show. Listen, Kenneth Walker headlines the love list for running backs. He's got the Giants, and it's quite simple right now when you look at the most rushing yards allowed to running backs this season. And, of course, Kenneth Walker looking good, and that matchup's looking great, Matthew.
Giants have allowed a rushing touchdown to a running back in every game this season. Kenneth Walker, top 3 among running backs in goal-to-go and red zone carries through 3 weeks. We think he gets into the end zone here. I like Ken Walker anytime touchdown in this game. By the way, every week his touches increased. He's had at least 18 carries each of the last 2 weeks. And they're getting him involved in the passing game. He's my running back 7.
Jay, we see right here the most rushing yards allowed to running backs, the Giants at number 4, and it's not pretty when the only teams that have been worse than you are the Denver Broncos, who are on a planet of their own, the Steelers and the Raiders.
Absolutely. A lot of game script there. The Giants have been just losing constantly in every game. Even when they were beating the Cardinals, they were losing most of that game. And I think the big thing with Ken Walker, there were concerns about his health coming into the season, his potential timeshare with Zach Charbonnet coming into the season. Both those questions have been answered in Ken Walker's favor. There's no timeshare and he's healthy as anything.
Our next one in the highest expected total of the week, that would be James Cook of the Bills, who are taking on the Dolphins. Barry, James Cook comes in as RB10 for you this week. Jay, he's got 16-plus touches in every game this season. They used a second-round pick on this guy 2 years ago. Now they're featuring James Cook.
Yeah, fun random fact. Rushing yards leaders in the NFL, 1, Christian McCaffrey, 2, DeAndre Swift, 3, James Cook, randomly. Kind of sneaks up on you, but he's gotten the usage. And in a game that we're expecting to be very high scoring, would expect him to have a very good chance getting in the end zone against Miami, Matthew.
Yeah, James Cook on the preseason love list, I'm just saying.
Was he?
You know, like, as long as, because everyone's going to hate on me for patting myself on the back, which rightfully so. So I might as well just
Double
lean
down.
into it.
Double down, yes.
Yeah, I might as well lean into
When
it.
in doubt, double
F it.
down.
I'm not backing down. Absolutely. I'm Tom Petty. I won't back down. Look, neither will James Cook, who's had back-to-back games with over 100 yards from scrimmage. You mentioned the 16 touches in every game this year. I like this. For as good as Miami's offense is, their defense hasn't been all that. They're allowing the 5th highest yards per carry to running backs this season, the 6th most rushing yards allowed to opposing running backs as well. The only downside to Cook is just, when they get in close, they've been pulling him for Latavius Murray or Damian Harris, but he's going to get into the end zone one of these days, and he's still been productive because of his usage in both the rushing and receiving game.
And we saw those reception totals go down to 2 after he had 4 the first 2 weeks. I think it goes back up against Miami's front 7. I think Josh Allen will look to dump it off to him again, get him working against those linebackers. Our next running back here, Zack Moss against the Rams. Zack Moss has taken over this backfield while Jonathan Taylor is on short-term IR. He has played on 85% of snaps in 2 games since returning, Barry. And honestly, Zack Moss has looked good and a little bit of a surprise. He's even contributed in the pass game a little bit.
54 touches in the last 2 games. I mean, you've been mossed is now all about Zach. Maybe not. But the fact of the matter is Zach's been terrific as well. Rams allow the 7th highest yards per carry to opposing running backs. Massive workload and a good matchup. I have Zack Moss as a top 15 play this week.
Yeah, I didn't foresee the 2 workhorse running backs in the NFL being Zack Moss and Kyron Williams, but that's where we are at the moment. And the Colts are fine. They're good. They're favored against the Rams. They're favored to go 3-1 bizarrely, so they're going to be in scoring position more than you would anticipate. And certainly love him for this week. It's just we'll see what happens when Jonathan
And we
Taylor
expect Anthony
maybe
Richardson
comes
back for this game.
We do, but I wonder how much they do run him coming off the concussion.
Correct.
So I feel still pretty comfortable with Zack Moss.
And with Jonathan Taylor scheduled to come off the IR, Zach knows, this might be
go
his last
time.
game. It's
yeah,
go time.
This might be go time. Our others receiving votes, Javonte Williams, Devon A. Chan, of course. Matt Breida, although we'll see what happens with Saquon Barkley. Of course, that one's pending. And then the surging Roschon Johnson in the Bears' backfield, Barry.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's played 45% of the snaps last week. He's had double-digit touches in 2 of the last 3 games. He's playing Denver, who, as you might have seen last week, you can run on. So like him, and then Javonte Williams in that same game on the other side of the field against the Bears, who've allowed the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing running backs this season. I know a lot is not going right in Denver at the moment, but I do think Javonte Williams has a top 20 day in him as well. Obviously, you're starting Achane after last week. And Breida, if Saquon Barkley can't go, unfortunately, it is the Monday night game, so you may not know. But hopefully, if Barkley can't go, I do like Breida in that game.
Yep.
All right, let's look at the hate list, which is headlined by Joe Mixon going up against that. Listen, not a lot has gone right for Tennessee this season, but that front 7 headlined by Jeffrey Simmons is still really, really good. and that leads to Joe Mixon, Jay, being at the top of the hate list for running backs.
You know, there's this perfect cocktail in Tennessee's defense which just destroys running backs because, one, they have an amazing front where you can't run on them, and then their secondary is so bad, so there's no reason to run on them at all. So it's just, this is the worst matchup that you can get if you're a running back effectively. Outside of the fact that the Titans aren't very good at the moment, so he may have a chance to get in the end zone, but he is kind of a touchdown-dependent running back this week, Matthew.
No running back has topped 52 total yards against Tennessee, to your point. He needs to fall into the end zone to be worth a start here. Since the start of 2021, only 3 running backs have had over 70 yards against the Tennessee Titans as well. They're allowing under 3 yards per carry so far this season. So yes, he is going to be very touchdown dependent because the passing game usage has been inconsistent as well. So I'm at running back 17 because I do think the Bengals will be in scoring position early and often. Like I said, I think Burrow, hint about what's coming up on the love list for quarterbacks. But yeah, I don't think he's going to have one of his best games.
No.
James Conner, a surprise entry to the injury report this week. We'll see if he ends up playing. Not a surprise entry, Jay, to the hate list because, quite simply, they're going up against San Francisco. This might be a little bit of, I don't want to say a reality check for Arizona, but they're not going to be overlooked anymore.
Yeah, I think the concern about James Conner coming into the season was that he would just be in all these game scripts which were not congruent to him being able to run the ball. And Arizona, even when they lost the first couple of weeks, they were in the game and they were able to run the ball. Against San Francisco, there's probably not as much of a chance of that as 2 touchdown underdogs. But look, Conner's been really good. He's been the second best running back by PFF grade. He's getting the work, but he's going to need to get in the end zone for him to provide value this week.
No team has allowed fewer rushing yards to opposing running backs than the San Francisco 49ers. 8 points doesn't seem like that much for running back. Well, there's only one running back that's had more than 8 points against the Niners this entire season. They're so good, and the fact that Conner might not be 100%. He played his fewest snap rate last week, 64%. It was his second lowest in a healthy game since week 3 of last season. So who knows if the Cardinals are trying to do something different or that there was an injury that wasn't reported in game. Either way, it's just, I love Conner, but he's outside my top 20 this week, just running back 23. He's a touchdown-dependent flex.
Guys, we love Brian Robinson on this show, but Brian Robinson makes the hate list this week. I mean, Washington is an 8.5-point underdog against the Eagles.
Outrageous.
Not a lot of running backs have been able to run against the Eagles. Hey, you make the hate list, so here's Brian Robinson.
Oh, no, I'm just saying the 8.5-point line.
Yeah.
Come
Offensive?
on. Yeah, it's offensive.
After they lost by 34 last week?
Yeah, but last year they went to Philadelphia and they
True.
defeated an undefeated Eagles team at the time.
That's true.
So I'm just saying, maybe history repeats
Brian
itself.
Robinson had a good game.
Brian Robinson had a great
Not
game.
an efficient game, but an effective one. Yeah. I think the problem with the Eagles is that if you're a running back going up against them, the Eagles are running the ball so effectively. DeAndre Swift has 308 rushing yards, 250 of them are before contact. He's just running through these wide open holes, and that just means that the other team just doesn't get the ball because they're controlling the ball so well.
No, it's exactly right. And they've allowed the second fewest rushing yards to running backs this season for his career. When Washington has lost, and you mentioned again the Eagles are 8.5-point favorites, Robinson's average is just 6.9 fantasy points per game. So again, game script needs to be favorable for him to get a heavy workload. And unlike last year where they tried to kind of hide the quarterback and they were willing to run, this year it seems Bieniemy is willing to, let Sam Howell throw it and chuck it around. So Brian Robinson, unfortunately, outside my top 25 for the week. Talking about Brian Robinson last year, you said he was not particularly efficient, but he was effective. I've said that to my wife all the time.
There we go. Just waiting for that drink.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I can't tell you how many times Beth and I have been on a date night. I'm like, listen, this is not going to be efficient, but it will be effective.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.